Hey, how's it going? This is Chris, and today we're going to take a look at how to use styled components inside of a Gatsby project. And what we're going to do is make a little nav menu. You can toggle it open and closed using some hooks. So it'll be one of those little hamburger menus. Um, you can use this definitely on mobile. You could potentially use it on desktop as well if you want to. Usually, what I do if people are asking about how do I make this responsive, honestly, I'll set a media query and I'll show my hamburger menu on mobile devices, and then I'll set display none at a certain point, and then I'll flip that. I'll do the inverse for my desktop. So I usually make two, a desktop nav and a mobile nav, and I'll just show one or the other based on the screen size. So for this project, what you'll need to do is make sure you have a Gatsby project, obviously. If you don't yet have styled components installed, then go ahead and yarn add or npm install styled components. Go ahead and do Gatsby plugin styled components, and then Babel plugin styled components. And then from there, we can Gatsby develop. One step I missed in our Gatsby config. Make sure my mistake. Make sure you have Gatsby plugin styled components. You might need to restart your server after adding that. So Gatsby config, Gatsby plugin styled components in your plugins array. So inside of index is where we're going to actually do all of this. I might recommend breaking some of this stuff out into separate components, and I'll tell you specifically where it's like really good idea to do this. But we're going to keep it all just contained in one file for now. So I'm going to refactor this a little bit and set it to an arrow function. So index, and then return our div with the hello world, and export default index. Cool, it's still there. All right, so let's go ahead and style up our like little hamburger menu icon first. So what we need to do at the top is import styled from styled components, and then make sure on the outside of your, either if you're using classes or functional components, make sure you're on the outside of wherever that is, and we're going to do const menu icon equals styled dot button. So with styled components, you don't lose semantic HTML. What you do is after styled, whatever element type that you want, you just call it after the dot here. So you can do styled dot header, styled dot section. Of course, you can do styled dot div. Just don't make sure that you don't use dot div after everything if you want your if you want semantic markup. So our menu icon, we'll position it fixed so that it stays in the same spot even when you're scrolling. We'll do 2rem from the top and from the right. We'll give it a display of flex direction, of column, and we'll space them out without worrying about margin or anything by just doing space around. We'll give them a width. We'll say 1.5, 1.5, and we can adjust that and if we need to. We'll make sure the background is transparent. We'll get rid of the border that comes on those buttons. We'll make sure the cursor shows up, and then we'll set the z index just to something higher than higher than 0 so that it sits on top of our content. Okay. So now nothing is showing up yet because we don't have this in here. So we can keep the div and let's do menu icon. And then we'll just do a couple of divs on the inside. All right, so if we explore around, not showing up yet. So let's keep on digging. Inside of the menu icon, we have some divs. So with styled components, one of the nice things is that you can use nesting to target different elements. So we'll target our div inside of our menu icon. And we'll give that a width of 1.5. We'll give it a height. Let's say we'll give it a third. Let's see how that looks. We'll give it a background of black. We'll give it a small little border radius. We will also need for later a transform origin. And let's take a look now. Let's refresh this and see if we get it. Okay, cool. All right, so we're getting something a little weird. Let's see. Let's see if we're doing, let's check if it's the positioning. All right. Oh, I see. I did border button instead of border none. There we go. That makes a little bit more sense. Great. So these are some chonky lines here. Let's see if we want to reduce this a little bit. Maybe 0.2. Cool. That's a little bit nicer looking. Okay. Awesome. So we've got our menu icon. If I were to, let's say, give this div, let's rename this as wrapper. And then set that wrapper equal to a styled div. And let's do like a background of like a grayish, and then a height of 200, so twice the size of the viewport. Because it's fixed, notice that it scrolls with the page. All right, so you might be noticing, yo, what's up with that white space around? So we've got some margin going on. So I'm going to show you real quick how we can get rid of that with global styles. So I'm actually going to get rid of this wrapper. I'm going to switch this back to a div. And what we'll do here is we will create global style from styled components. This is something, I mentioned earlier, some things you might want to break into separate components. This is definitely one of them. So you'll want to put the global style inside of your layout component so that it applies to all of your pages. So we'll do const global equals create global style, and then backticks, and then we can just set the body's margin to 0 to get rid of that. And then all we need to do is bring this global inside of our div here and then close it off. And so you didn't see it. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, there we go. So the hello world you could see now is actually pressed up against the left side of the screen. I thought that you might miss it because there's no background color to make it obvious, but there you go. So again, put this inside of your layout component. Don't do this on a page-by-page thing unless that's the effect you're going for and you want your pages to look different. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create our actual menu where you have your different links. So instead of this hello world, what we can do is we'll say menu links, and that'll be our wrapper. Actually, let me show you this instead, and then we'll rename it. So we'll do nav, and then an unordered list with a list item, and then an anchor tag. We'll just lead it to nowhere for now, and we'll copy those, and we'll say bio projects and contact. All right, so there's our nav stuff. So as I mentioned before, you're not giving up semantic HTML, so we can make a style.nav to target this stuff. So we have our menu icon here. Beneath that, we'll do const menu or menu links style.nav, 2 backticks, and let's do a display of flex. Let's do flex direction column. Let's justify content center, align items center, text align center. We'll give it a height of 100% of the viewport and a width of the entire, we'll give it a width of 100%. Okay, so this should be at least good enough to get us started. So this menu link, since it's a styled nav, we can replace this nav here with menu links. All right, so now they're all centered up. Let's give it a background. We'll use that gray color. All right, nice. Now again, with nesting in styled components, we can target our unordered list and give it a list style type of none to get rid of the dots, the little bullet points. We can also target our anchor tags and give them a text decoration of none. And why don't we set the color to black? And then we could do font size is 1.5 rem. And then if we move up and do our list items, we could do margin, top. Give them a little space. All right, cool. So we've got our links. Now what we want to do, actually, too, what you can do is if we do, like, let's say we go in and we do inside of our anchor tag and you hover and we say like color, let's say here, and let's tweak that so we can do, let's do like a, I don't know, I'm just gonna type in some random numbers and see what we get. All right, nothing cool. Still nothing cool. Oh yeah, there we go, because I didn't hover over it. All right, there, we got a nice kind of bluish. All right, so when we're hovering over it, so notice I'm nesting, and then if we do like transition color, there we go. So obviously this is not going to show up on mobile, but if you're using this on desktop, then you'll have that nice hover effect. All right, so we've got our links, but obviously we don't want this showing all the time. So what we can do is for our menu links, we can just push this off the page with with a transform. But first we need to do a little bit of positioning. So we'll position this absolute. We'll give it a top of 0, a right of 0. Okay, and then we want to transform it off the page. So we'll do transform translate X 100%. And so now it's off. Now if we want to bring it back on the page, then what we can do is utilize hooks to bring it back on and off. So let's go ahead and import hooks, or import our use state hook. And then down here we can do like a const nav and show nav equals use state false. Okay, and then what we can do here is our menu icon. That's the thing we want to click. We can give it an on click. And whenever somebody clicks that button, we can show the nav to be opposite. So it's like you're toggling it. Oops, I flipped that. All right, cool. And let's see what is going on here. I don't know why that div popped up. All right, and then so when we click this, it's gonna update the state of nav. And what we want to do is we want to pass that state into our menu links so that we can then read it. So if we do nav equals nav, we can take this in as props. So now for our menu links, instead of this translate X, what we can do is we can do $, and then I'm just destructuring the props that are coming in, and if nav is true, then we want to translate X 0. If not, then we want to translate X off the screen. So now if we click this, we're getting it off and on. So notice here we're getting this little jumpiness. I'm going to dig around there for a second and then pop back once I get that resolved. All right, we're back. So figured out that it was this in your body global style, setting the overflow X to hidden. So that was causing this horizontal scroll. And so now if we click this button, we're seeing that the menu shows and hides itself. So now let's make that a little bit more smooth. So it's transforming off the page. We can use a transition to target the transform. So the transition, transform, 300 milliseconds. And now it's smooth coming off and on the page. So the next thing that we want to do is we can animate this set of divs here to rotate and then get rid of that middle one so that it turns into a little X. And we can do the same thing where we pass down props to let the bars know that that's coming in. So let's pass them in. In our menu icon, we have the on-click handler. We can also do nav equals nav. Then we can use that nav inside of our little menu icon. So remember, it's the menu icon is where our little divs are. So inside of the div, we can target the first child, and we're gonna rotate it based on the state. So again, destructuring out nav, and if nav is true, meaning that we can see it on the screen, then we're gonna rotate it 45 degrees. And then if not, we're gonna rotate it 0. In quotes, rotate 0. For our second child, we're just gonna set the opacity to 0. So we'll do opacity based on the nav, and if it's open, then we'll set it to 0. If not, we'll set it to 1. And then for the third child, I'm actually just gonna I'll copy this part, and I'll do nth child 3, and then I just pasted it down, but we're gonna do negative 45 degrees. And let's take a look. So notice now it's an X, and now it's our bars. Okay. What we can do now is add a transition similar to our slide in to make that a little bit more smooth. So we can do transition opacity 300 and transform 300 milliseconds. And now we get that nice little smooth animation. And so there you go. You can mess with it a little bit more, obviously, with styling, making it something more exciting than black and gray. You can mess around with positioning and putting it, coming in from the left. You can mess with the width. If you just want this to like peek out, for example, you could do a width of like, let's try 25%. And it just kind of nicely peeks out there for you. You can mess with the height. But again, with styled components, we've got all of our styles. We've got all of our stuff. We've got our logic. Our layout is what I meant by stuff. All in one file, which obviously can become cumbersome, and you can even, if you wanted to break out menu links and menu icon into their own components and break out the styling from menu links and menu icon into those components, then that might make sense as well. And then some people will even do like a folder where it has like let's say menu icon.js and then menu icon.style.js. And in their style.js, they'll do like this part and they'll export it, and then they'll import it into their component. So you can do all sorts of crazy stuff just depending on how you want to organize and structure everything. But really like styled components. Using it with Gatsby is great as well. So I hope you like this one. If you did, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe. That'll be helpful. And I'll go ahead and keep on making some of these videos. As I mentioned too, if you're looking, you're like, how do I make this responsive? How do I make this on desktop if I don't want to have a hamburger menu on desktop? As I said, I would go ahead and just media query these, and you can check out how to. I'll do a separate video on how to use media queries with styled components. But I would just hide these at a certain like target them at a certain device size, and set display none, and then have your um, separate desktop nav bar with your traditional links at the top, if that's what you want to do. And I would hide those at on small devices and show them on large devices, and obviously make sure that that crossover point is at the same device width, so that you're not showing either double navigation or no navigation based on the device size. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.